So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Susanna Reid asking Starmer if he wants to apologise to pensioners for cutting the winter fuel allowance. Now, before we play the clip, I want to bring you to the attention of this great tweet from No Justice, where she says, "A pertinent question, yet did any journalist ever ask Ian Duncan Smith to apologise for all of the disabled people who died under the Conservatives?" And I would extend that, not just to Ian Duncan Smith, to George Osborne and David Cameron as well, and to all of the chancellors we had. Philip Hammond, for example, he's another one. I'd ask him, are you proud of this? Is this how your parents raised you? To effectively, kill off people within the poorest people within society? That's what I'd be asking them. But I think this was a great tweet she put out, and as annoying as it is sometimes, when people are right that journalists suddenly figured out, when Labour are in charge, how to ask tough questions. But I think Susanna Reid did that under the Tories as well, especially after she moved from the BBC to ITV. I wish she did it more often, because she's quite good at her job when she decides to do it.
Would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry to pensioners like Chrissy?
Well, I am really concerned that we've been put in this position. When you inherit an economy with £22 billion missing, it is a really difficult set of choices.
But, it's a choice you decided to make, especially when you dropped the digital service tax, which was raised around £3 billion. I had it somewhere, but it doesn't really matter. You decided to drop that because Google had donated some hospitality to some of your MPs, and then Labour dropped it. So you would have made about £3 billion off that. So, tough choices. Want to go to Glastonbury on the cheap. Gotta take money from the boomers. Sorry.
But what I don't want to do is to allow the economy to run out of control.
I asked you.
I mean, the economy's not going to run out of control. This winter fuel allowance would not have caused the economy to lose control, because they asked, Robert Heston and people like that, they asked people in the city, would this have caused a Liz Truss situation? And the city said no. So this idea that we'd have faced a Liz Truss situation is complete nonsense.
Would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry to voters who voted for you, like Chrissy, pensioners who are about to lose hundreds this winter because of your choices?
What I'd say to Chrissy is this. I absolutely promised that we would stabilise the economy to make sure we never had the economy getting out of control again. We then discovered 22...
But again, this winter fuel allowance would not have crashed the economy.
£2 billion missing.
OK, so you've mentioned the £22 billion a couple of times. Just because I've asked you a couple of times and you have just skirted around it, would you like to say sorry?
The people who should be saying sorry are the last government who left a hole of £22 billion.
Again, that's also a red herring as well, because some of that is from the salary increases, which Labour have done, which, again, I agree with the salary increases, but if the media were actually good at their job, they would attack this point as well and say that it's not a 22 billion hole. It was about, I think it was like 11 or 15, I can't remember the exact amount.
And they should be sorry for that. They should apologise for that.
You're not going to apologise?
I've come in to fix the mess, fix the problems, and that's tough. Really tough decision. And if we don't stabilise the economy, we can't keep to the...
Again, stabilise the economy. This is economic illiteracy at the highest, and I kind of wish she would do a better job here in calling it out. But again, this is the problem where you have, journalists who just have political backgrounds and not economic backgrounds. If you had, Faisal Islam or Kamal Ahmed or any kind of one of the economists we've kind of seen before, like the one I cited on the Question Time video I did recently about, the magic money tree, they would have done a much better job here. But, at least she tried. You got to respect that. This is more kind of easy feed for kind of far right players. I think the framing for this is a bit off when you bring in things like foreign aid, because I think foreign aid does do a lot of good for the world. But when the fact that the Labour government are spending $3 billion in aid to Ukraine, but cut the winter fuel allowance, which I think costs less than that, it kind of, you can kind of see why people get annoyed about it when they say, why don't we spend the money here when you're spending this much on defence, and then arguing, sorry guys, we're going to have to, pensioners might not be able to turn their heating on because we're going to cut funding to them.
To be in America, in New York, we spend $3 billion on Ukraine, $8 billion on foreign aid. What do you say to those who say, spend that money at home?
I understand that argument, but I think in relation to, let's say, Ukraine, we have to understand that that war in Ukraine is not just about Ukraine. It's about Russian aggression. It's about our freedom, our democracy, the way we're able to exercise our rights in this country.
Which is all true, but, you know, we exercise the right to elect you, and you've made the choice to cut people's, you know, essentially their funding to help them through the winter. Like, I think, you know, in some sense, this is a good answer, because ultimately, if Russia decides to invade a NATO country, you know, we would have to spend a lot more in defense of that NATO country, which is the argument I'd be making if I were Starmer. But when you make the decisions that you have made, you open the door for these easy criticisms to be made of you, and I don't think people will buy this sort of answer.
It is the frontier of freedom, and so it's really important that we stand with Ukraine. That's why there's been pretty well political unity on this from the start. Yes, of course.
I mean, there hasn't been political unity from the start. I mean, Germany were quite hesitant in terms of, you know, the weapons they would give and the amount of support, because a lot of people thought Russia would walk Ukraine, and they didn't. So there wasn't unity from the start, not at all.
Of course, Russia has invaded Ukraine, so it's about Ukrainian sovereignty, but it is also about our freedom, our democracy, and our rights and freedoms in this.
And you can't argue it's about our democracy when you've made a decision that wasn't even in the manifesto.
Country, and I think everybody would accept.
And any
but in
cuts
circumstances
to
like
foreign
that,
aid?
well, you know, of course, every decision has to be carefully taken. But we have been resolute, and I'm proud that we've been resolute in this country for our support for Ukraine. I'm proud that across the country, people have opened their homes to refugees from Ukraine.
So you're not going to address the foreign aid bit?
Who've suffered from Russian aggression. I think that's who we are as a country, but it also matters, because if Russian aggression...
Yeah, he doesn't answer this question on foreign aid, because I think he would be too difficult for him to answer it, but this is one of the key problems, and we're going to end with this final point here.
Was talking about. That's why we need to have a budget that actually knows where it's going to get the funds from to make the investment. And you will remember that Rachel Reeves in 2021 came to conference and she said, we are going to invest in the green economy. We're going to put £28 billion a year in.
Yeah, you know, invest in the green economy, blood. We can't even do we're cutting things like Winter Fuel Allowance. We're cutting things like basic, you know, we're cutting things like infrastructure projects. RG, like, you know, that was what she said. I don't think she believed in, to be honest.
There is a difference between investment and borrowing for investment and borrowing for consumption.
Yeah.
And that is the problem. Rachel Reeves is tying one arm behind Keir Starmer's back. And
I agree with that. You know, as soon as I saw the fiscal rules, I said to you guys, you know, this is bad. This is not what they should be doing. And although there are rumours that they're going to tweak the rules around, like, what is classed as debt and what isn't, which I think is fine. I think the media will call them on just kind of fiddling around with numbers, be like spreading your debt around multiple credit cards or something like that. I'm sure we might hear something like that. Although I agree with the decision for Reeves to do that. Ultimately, like, if you want to get growth, it's going to cost you money. You're going to have to invest in the economy into key areas in order to get the economy moving. Are Labour going to do that? I'm not seeing it. But, you know, we wait and see on the budget and things like that. But, you know, Starmer refusing to apologise to the older people. But I wish we had the same energy during the austerity, when austerity was really, really bad, you know, 2010 to 17. And, you know, really the whole Tory period of 2010 to 2024, really. I wish we had the same energy of asking, you know, politicians, are you going to apologise to all the people that died because of X policy or Y policy? You know, how do you sleep at night knowing that people died because of your actions? That's what I really wish we could have seen. I still think Victoria Derbyshire, if she had done this interview, it would have been a lot better as well, because she brings out, you know, more stories from people. But anyways, you know, I think it was fine what Susanna Reid did here. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.